Hey there, my friend. Welcome to Lulawa Yoga. I am Lauren, and I am so glad that you are joining me for today's mat chat. I created this series as a way for us to explore and talk about different phrases or sayings that you might hear in a yoga class, whether that is with me or with another teacher. And today we are talking about honoring your body. If you have practiced with me, I can almost guarantee you've heard me say this because I say it in pretty much every class that I teach. So in its simplest form, honoring your body means respecting where you are at in that moment, both physically and energetically. So it could look something like being aware of the fact that you had a really crappy night's sleep the night before, and so today you are really tired. Or perhaps you recently had a baby, and this is the first time that you are coming back onto the mat for a practice. Or maybe you've got something going on with work or with a relationship that is uber stressful and your mind is like a little frazzled and you just feel kind of all over the place. Bringing awareness to what is going on, those external factors that influence us, right? That's what we're talking about. We want to create awareness around all of what's happening because that will often tell us the reason why we're feeling a certain way physically and energetically. And so it seems easy, right? Some of that seems easy enough to sit back and think, oh, okay, this is happening, so this is the result, right? I'm feeling a certain way. But the challenge, I think, often that we find is when we introduce then the ego and expectation to the party. And what I mean by that is, I think especially as adults, we tend to set expectation, whether that is an expectation based on something that we did the last time you were on your mat, or something that has always kind of come naturally, but maybe this is like a new pose or a new element that's been introduced, and it simply doesn't come as naturally as you think that it should. I do this. I feel like, oh, I can do X, therefore I can do Y. But Y may be really freaking hard for whatever reason, and now I'm having like this battle, like, oh, I think I should do that, which is ego and expectation. And so when we come onto the mat, that introduces a new dynamic because you've got your body telling you one thing, and then you have, again, this ego expectation telling you something else. And so how do we bridge the gap? How do we reconcile those two? Well, I think it takes two things. One, it takes awareness. We have to stop, and we have to be able to step back and recognize, okay, my body, that little internal voice is saying one thing, ego expectation is saying something else. And then we have to figure out which is true. And this is a great place where we introduce another limb of yoga, the first limb of yoga, which are the yamas. And I want to share with you an excerpt from this wonderful book, The Yamas and Niyamas by Deborah Adele. And we're talking about Satya, which is truthfulness. And Deborah writes, "But truth demands integrity to life and to our own self. That is more than not telling a simple lie. When we are real rather than nice, when we choose self-expression over self-indulgence, when we choose growth over the need to belong, and when we choose fluidity over rigidity, we begin to understand the deeper dynamics of truthfulness." Okay, so what does that mean? All right. y'all, for me, the way that I interpret what Deborah said, that truthfulness, is if I am practicing, because this has happened to me before. I was in a traditional studio class one time, and we came into a plank pose. And plank was something that is part of my regular practice. The last time that I had stepped on the mat, we did some planking. And that's always been relatively easy, relatively accessible for my body. But this particular practice, I just was not feeling it. I was super tired. My body was shaking. I was having a difficult time breathing in and out of my nose. And the longer that we held this and the teacher was talking, I was getting irritated. I was irritated with myself. I look around, I cast a glance around to the other people around me, and everybody seemed to be having this easy breezy time. And that just added to that frustration. And that's a great example of how that ego and expectation came in and bullied its way into my practice. Because my body was telling me, take your butt back to child's pose and take a breather and just be fine with where you are at today. But I was having this internal battle because the ego was saying, look around, Lauren. People twice your age are holding this, seeming to have no problem. And then that expectation, that was also saying, well, the last time that you were on the mat, you didn't have a problem with this. Why are you having a problem with this today, right? And on that little internal argument went. And so here is where we have to introduce that truthfulness, and we have to, in those moments, ask ourselves, where am I at today physically? Where am I at today energetically? And in that moment, the truth was, I was freaking tired. So that should have indicated, that should have been that internal instruction that says, who cares what anybody else is doing? Who cares what you did the last time you were on the mat? Take child's pose. Respect where you are at. Honor where you are at. But and again, it sounds so easy in practice, but this type of internal work, this type of awareness building, and then acknowledging where we're at and moving and practicing in a vein of truth, it takes effort and it takes practice. At least for me, this doesn't always come easy. It doesn't always come naturally. So let me leave you with a couple of pointers here. So how you can honor your body and ways that you can work to practice this is by, first and foremost, creating awareness. And that means asking yourself every time you come onto the mat and throughout your practice, how am I feeling right now? If you practice with me, I will often literally ask you or instruct you to ask yourself, how are you feeling right now in this moment? Use that as the opportunity to take that little inventory and let that information, that inventory, that truth, tell you what you need to do. And then secondly, if you notice the ego, right, if you notice the expectation, if they're popping up, it's fine. Big spoonful of grace for yourself, because that's just life. It happens. Know that every time you honor your body, that you embrace the truth of how you're feeling in the moment, and you move from that place, that you are deepening the well from which you can draw from every time you come back on your mat. It will get easier. You just have to practice that awareness, use that information to guide you through the practice. And then no matter where you're at along this path, along this journey, just remember grace for yourself. And there we have it, my friend. Honoring your body. Thanks for joining me for this mat chat, and I will see you very soon.